It was a big week in tech as the Samsung Galaxy Unpacked 2025 event took place with gadget geeks getting to see new devices, the company's latest updates, and more. But how does it all stack up against the competition? Here to help us answer that is editor-in-chief at Tom's Guide, Mark Spoonauer. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So what are the biggest takeaways from the Galaxy Unpacked 2025?
Well, no big surprise. AI was the big theme of the entire event and how they're trying to make it more integrated into the phone experience. I think the Galaxy S25 Ultra, I think, was probably the phone that's being announced soon that has like the most pull because it's the most premium in the lineup and they gave it a redesign. I have it right here. I'm going to be starting my review. And I actually like the design itself, and some of the AI features are pretty cool. So, for example, they're beating Apple to the punch. I give them some credit in terms of what this device can do. So, for example, if I say, when is the Super Bowl and add it to my calendar and text my friends, I can do that with all one phrase and it'll be like added to my calendar. It'll hook up with Google. It'll then be like texted out. So like they're trying like to collapse like multiple actions into like one utterance, which I think is pretty cool. And that's kind of what like AI is supposed to do, do stuff for us and like be a lot more practical and less like magic tricks.
Especially if you're on the go, it's so easy. It's like you say one thing and it goes to your text messages, your calendar. That's amazing. That's a big part of the
Yeah.
AI. Anything else that they are using AI for with the new phone?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. So one is like called the now brief. So like if you're on the home screen, so like you'll see that like in the upper, it's a little bit bright, but if like it's in the upper right hand corner here, it'll like give you like a start to your day. Like here's what you should be doing. So it'll say like here's the weather, like here's like your next appointments, and it's like actually pretty intuitive in terms of like, and also like surface news, and it actually gets to know you over time. So they're calling this sort of like a personal data engine that it all stays on the phone, which is good because they're also competing with Apple when it comes to privacy, right? So it's like calendar, weather, your next appointment, here's news. And also like if you're hooked up with Spotify, it'll say like, here's like some like relaxing music to start your day. So I think in a way, AI is becoming a little bit more proactive and more fun in the process.
All right, we were speaking a little bit earlier how I still have the iPhone 14. So let's talk about the competition now. Is,
Sure.
is this new phone worth it? It sounds like it is. And is it better than the iPhone? You know, a lot of people don't like to do the switch. So what are your thoughts on that?
I would say that, like, when it comes to I would say that Samsung has pulled into the lead. I think what Apple has done with Apple Intelligence, and it's purposeful, is that they've been putting out things like in dribs and drabs, and they've talked about voice actions for Siri and making Siri more personal and being able to so-called voice control your apps. But that's not coming out, and they haven't necessarily given like a timetable for that. If I had a guess, it'll probably be March, April. That's been one of like my biggest frustrations with Apple Intelligence is that it wasn't all there on day one. But I think they're trying to be careful on purpose. So I think when it comes to AI, I think that Samsung is in the lead. But when it comes to like the actual like the cameras, I do think that Apple is a little bit better depending on the situation, especially in low light. Like when I was in San Jose, I was out at night and like testing them side by side. So I think the cameras have gotten better with Samsung, but they still need like a little bit ways to go. So it really depends on what you're looking for in your phone.
Okay, so you have tried both products, and I want to ask you, what do you think is the one thing or a couple things that would get people to actually switch over from Apple to Samsung? What is one thing you think they need to do to kind of get that group over there?
I think one of those things is not really in their control. I think with like RCS messages, it's easier than ever to message people across platforms. But I think that whole green bubble versus blue bubble debate is going to continue to percolate in the background. No one wants to be that one person who like is not the right color in that text conversation. But I actually do think that like phones like this are going to open people's eyes in terms of what's possible. So even if they're not switching, they're going to be like, well, how come my iPhone doesn't do that? And that's probably like the best result that Samsung could help for now in terms of like generating buzz. Like there's going to be commercials for this phone, and they're going to be like, oh wait, my iPhone doesn't do that. So I think that's a good start.
And when it comes to the iPhone, it seems like every time you hear about a new Samsung phone or Droid or anything like that, there seems to be major leaps in the technology. Do you think Apple is going to follow suit at all or still take these incremental steps to building their brand or building their phone?
I think it's going to be incremental, but I think one of the more interesting things that came out of this particular event is something that is not out yet, and that's the Galaxy S25 Edge. So there was rumors that Samsung was working on a very slim phone, And I don't think it's a coincidence that there's rumors that Apple is working on a so-called iPhone 17 Air that's going to come out later this year, which would be the thinnest phone that they've ever made, or one of the thinnest. So this particular device got like a very quick tease at the end of Samsung Unpacked,
Hmm.
and then we had a chance to go like not hands-on because it was behind like a little bit roped area, but we got like up close enough so that we could take videos and pictures of it, and it is super super thin. But it also raises questions like, okay, so if they're teasing this for early adopters, should I wait for this so-called Galaxy S25 Edge, or should I get the Galaxy S25 Ultra now? So there's always this tension between getting people excited about the future and trying to drum up sales now. And I thought it was kind of weird that Samsung actually removed that tease from the official video from Unpacked on YouTube. So I wonder if they created too much buzz.
That's a good question because you always hope that there's some kind of deal, right, with your phone company where you can switch with no problem or upgrade. Let's get back to the Galaxy though. So the mixed reality
Yep.
headset is now in the mix. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So they showed this as well. Like right after the event, we were able to get close-ish to it, and it looks very much like an Apple Vision Pro. But this is using Google's XR platform, right? So mixed reality, I'm assuming it's going to have many of the same capabilities of the Vision Pro because they've shown that off a little bit so far. I think the biggest question mark, there's actually two. One is going to be the price, right? So everyone knows the Vision Pro is way too expensive at $3,500. I think that if Samsung's going to make some waves, they're probably going to have to price it around like the $1,000 to $1,500 range because you still have the MetaQuest out there, right? Like the 3 and the 3S around the $500 price point. And even then, like a lot of people like try these VR headsets and mixed reality devices, and they're excited for the first week, and then they wind up in a drawer.
Hmm.
so,
It's
so
true.
how do you avoid that? So I think the applications that come out with it is going to be really important. But ultimately, I think what all of this is building towards is like augmented reality glasses. Like the headset I see is like a step towards something that's going to be something that you might wear every day. And we saw some of that at CES as well. There's a lot of like upstarts who are trying to come out with stuff because they know that, and Meta too, right? So Meta has glasses that are going to be coming out, the Meta Orion. They're in like a project phase, but I think that's more like the holy grail. It's like a pair of glasses that gives you a lot of the capabilities of the Vision Pro, but without having to wear a bulky headset. There's going to be a race to see who can do that first. And I don't think it's coincidence that Samsung teased, it was just one slide, that they're working on glasses after the headset. We just don't know the name or the cost or anything
Right.
else. But I feel like that's what's coming.
Well, you have to mix the style with the technology because you're right. No one wants to wear the bulky
hmm
headset. You look a little crazy doing that. So, if there's one thing you can say about the phone that you think is the best part of this recent announcement, what would you say?
I would say it's the AI, right? So it's the fact that it's getting smarter, more proactive, more helpful. Like if you're on, let's say YouTube, and you click this AI select button, you just like select what's on your screen, and it starts to suggest things based on what's on your display, like, hey, do you want to turn this into a GIF, right? Things like that. So AI that anticipates your needs. I just feel like AI in general, at least up until now, has been a tough sell. So like my advice to Samsung and others is don't sell it as AI, just sell it as helpful features. And another great one is the audio eraser feature, right? Like if you're recording video and there's background noise, you can decide like what you want to get rid of and what you want to keep in terms of the voices. So, just be really like upfront about what's practical and what's cool, and maybe don't use the AI term so much.
It might turn some people off if they don't want to use it. All right, so while we have you, what other major tech news should we be expecting in 2025, and what is Tom's guide looking out for?
Sure. I mean, I think when we talk about Apple, I think the near term is probably like in March. Like what we're hearing is that we could see the announcement of the iPhone SE 4, which would be like their like affordable device for the year, and chances are that'll have Apple Intelligence, built in. But I think for the rest of this year, I'm excited to see what happens in terms of wearables in particular, because a lot of people are talking about AI in these phones, but I see it as a precursor to what's next. So like vision, right? So pointing your camera at your fridge and said like, what can I make, in terms of what's here? But like at some point, glasses is going to overtake that. So
Hmm.
in a way, I feel like the whole smart glasses revolution that started with the Meta glasses from Ray-Ban. I think that that's going to be really interesting towards the end of this year to see what products come out and which are they're still in the prototype stage. So that's what I'm excited to see, that like what happens with that race.
That's going to pique a lot of interest. Mark Spoonauer, editor
hmm
in chief, Tom's Guide. Thank you so much for joining us on Cheddar.
All right. Thank you.